And then sometimes enough is just enough. Hey, what's up? I'm Rafael aka Rafi D is me, and I am back at it again on another beautiful Friday night. And this week, we are going to talk about some things that I'm really not such a fan of here in Italy. A lot of times I focus on the realities of living here in Italy, but focus more on some of the more positive aspects. There are things that I am not crazy about, but I would say overall there are many more positive things than negative things. And I really have to rack my brain if I'm trying to find something that I don't like about living here. But there's a few that I can think of. And just because there's a few of you who recently contacted me about this, I just want to let you guys know, yes, I am okay. That video that I did, I think it was 3 weeks ago, it was number 99 in the NYAG series about frustration. I just want to let you guys know, I'm fine. I have no plans to leave the country. I'm really actually doing okay. So thank you to those of you who did message me privately with your concerns. Really, there is absolutely nothing to worry about. If there were something wrong, I would very clearly say I'm not okay, but I am very much okay. And just before we get too much deeper into this video, if you would like to see more content like this about moving to Italy, Italian dual citizenship, and living life abroad, please be sure to subscribe with that notification bell turned on. And if you could also hit the like button and share it with your friends, I'd very much appreciate it, as it does help out the channel. And of course, if you'd like to help out the channel in another way and help make videos like this possible on a monthly basis, you can go to rafaeldifuria.com/Patreon, or to just help out one time, you can go to rafaeldifuria.com/support, or for shirts, baby onesies, mugs, and more with Italy-centric designs, you can go to rafaeldifuria.com/NYAG gear. So really, thank you very much. Videos actually are truly made possible by you guys, so thank you. And just before we really start the video, for those of you who live in Italy or are thinking about living in Italy or who have lived in Italy in the past, what are some of the things that really annoy you about life in Italy, or that have annoyed you, or that you were worried that could annoy you, get on your nerves? Let me know down in the comment section below. So like in that video that I uploaded a few weeks ago about some of those little things that just kind of get to you sometimes, these are some of the little things that sometimes get to me, but I have very much gotten to the point where I can laugh about these things. At times, if it's a bad day, I'll be like, oh, come on. Just like, why? Why does it have to be today? Today's just not the day for that to happen. So the first one on my list is with sizes. I'm a bigger guy. I'm not like huge or anything. I'm 6'1", and it's not that I have to wear like really huge sizes, but in Italy, I have an impossible time to try to find clothing that fits me, because sometimes I'll find something that's just right for my arms, but like the torso will come up to here, like in the bottom of the shirt's up here, so like nothing is covered, or there will be times when the shoulders are just right, but then the sleeves come to here. I've had this so many times where I've tried on shirts and it's like the full length will just come to here on my arm. And shoes, that's another one. I am a size 11.5. This is normal-ish in America. So this is not too far off from average. This is not like a huge size that hard to find. Depending on the company, it could be 45, 46. One time I had 44. When I go for shoes or when I go for clothes or whatever, I just get looks from the employees like, oh no, it's Godzilla. There was one time I was getting a pair of shoes in particular that I can think of. I know this happened more than once though. I'm just not sure if it was only in Italy. I think there was a couple times in Italy and other places as well, but I was like, do you have this shoe in a 45? And they were like, I'm sorry, but we don't serve your kind here. Like, they didn't say that, but that was what it felt like. They're like, I'm sorry, we don't have that size here. But it was like, it was just that the tone that was very much like, what's wrong with you, you freak of nature? Just that utter shock and horror. And there are times when, like, because sometimes Italian doors are short, really short, really, really short. I've hit my head a few times. I pay attention, but there's still times when I've hit my head, even when paying attention, just on that way up on the other side of the door, because sometimes the doorway is thick. And there's one pizza place here where they have a little bit of PTSD, because there was one time I almost kind of knocked myself out. I was walking through the door, maybe this is like my second week here in Rovigo, and I was just grabbing a little bit of pizza, and the door, in comparison with my height, was probably about here. So it was like, okay, fine. I duck down, no big deal. And then I thought I was crouched down long enough. And then on my way up, this bar came down right in the middle of my head. I started getting a little dizzy. They all were freaking out and just like sat me down and like, are you okay? I mean, I'm sure they were worried like that I was gonna make a fuss about it. Like, do you need us to call an ambulance? And I was like, whatever, don't worry about it. I just sat there, drank some water. And I said, like, look, you have this thing. And I know I'm not the only person that's close to my height here. I mean, it's really like you guys need to have like something like even like a strip of tape with yellow and black. That's like, it makes it clear, because I didn't even see that little bar where it came like right down in the middle of my head like a guillotine. And so it's like, oh yes, we'll take care of this. A couple months later, nothing, no difference, no changes. And so those little things where, in general, Italy, I would say, is not really an accessible place to begin with. But there are those little things where, even being a tall person and seeing that there are just those things where there's not that little warning, but sometimes, no bueno. And then another thing, something that is very much affecting me, even in this moment, especially in this moment. So in the apartment that I'm in right now, the condominium fees are a little bit higher than they would be in other places in the same town. I don't understand why, and I haven't been here in this apartment a whole year yet. And part of what this fee is actually supposed to cover in this apartment is heater in the wintertime. It's not quite wintertime yet, but from the end of September, it started getting a bit cool here. And so it's already cold. Even in my apartment, it's a bit cool right now, which is why I'm wearing a long sleeve sweater. But this is definitely sweater weather outside and inside. And more than likely, from what I've heard, and a lot of Italian buildings do this, they don't turn on the shared heating systems until the middle of November. So yeah, beginning of October, got a little while before that happens. I've been thinking maybe get myself like a little space heater, just something, or like one of those coil oil heaters. Those are so great, but I'm going to see how far I can stick it out. I've been very much getting my blankets and having some burrito time, I guess we can call it. So it's a lot of money per month, and it's not just for the heating, but it's also for upkeep of the building, cleaning the public areas, and the elevator use, and these different things. But come on, it's cold. Turn the heat on. And this is also a little bit of an Italian thing that I think is kind of funny. A lot of people in Italy dress for the season, not the weather. So even though it's cool now, I've seen people out in like full winter gear. Not like snow gear, but like big puffy jackets. That's the thing. When it starts getting cool in Italy, it is immediately puffy jacket season. Not annoying, just something I kind of find interesting, a little funny too. But the next thing is sometimes having to go to the post office. This is one thing. It's like, I don't know, let's put it like this. It is all the fun and wonder of going to a post office with the joy of the DMV. And there's always a line, there's always a lot of people there. Of course, it depends on where you are, what post office you're going to, or what post office at least you need to go to. Sometimes you have an option of a couple that are not too far away from each other. But one of the things you have to know is that there are different numbers for different things. You could have, there's the like numbers with the smiley faces at the end, or numbers that are just regular numbers, or numbers with PT at the end. It just depends on what services you need. And there have been once or twice when I've gotten a number for the wrong services, and then I see my number come up on the board, and then I get up to the teller and it's like, oh, I'm sorry, you have 390 smiley face, not 390 star. And I had already been waiting there for like 30 minutes, 40 minutes. Sometimes the waits at the post office are really long, because Italian post offices are not just post offices. For a little bit more about Italian post offices, I'll try to remember to put a video up in the corner, or otherwise after this video you can just go to my channel and find my video about the Italian post system. And I actually filmed it outdoors in my old town in Merano. Something that also really gets to me sometimes is the hours of operation. This is probably the one thing that I find the most frustrating. A lot of stores and a lot of offices will close for a few hours, or at least a couple of hours in the afternoon. Even I think when I was down in Corleone, they closed at about like 12 or 1, and then a lot of things opened up again at 6. Here where I live now, it's not that bad. Things seem to close at about like 1 or 2 and then open up again around 3:30, 4-ish. So it's not too bad, but it's always at that time slot though. right in between 2 and 4 when I'm like, okay, yeah, now would be a perfect time to go. And then I realized, oh, wait, supermarket's closed. And sometimes they happen to have like one specific thing that one of the other supermarkets doesn't have. So that can get annoying for sure. Or trying to go to an office during that time of day. It's just like, nope, no chance, goodbye, forget it. Or living in a small town in Italy, if you live in a town or a small city that has public transportation, not all areas will have buses on Sundays. Trains, more than likely, yes, you should be fine, or there might be a slightly different schedule depending on the region. But like where I live now, there are absolutely 0 buses on Sunday. And Sundays always happens to be the one day of the week where I'm like, yeah, I guess I could go to the mall there. There's something that I kind of need to pick up. It's not so common that that happens, but it's happened more than a few times since moving here to Rovigo. And the thing is, you have to start planning your life around these dates when things are closed. And also a lot of things in general are closed on Sundays, or they have shorter hours on Sundays. And even a lot of supermarkets here where I live will only, if they're open at all, they'll only be open till about 1 in the afternoon, maybe 12, but a lot of places are just closed. You can go to some cafes and stuff, it's not a problem. But there are those times when you just need that one ingredient, and it happens to be 2 o'clock and it's all closed. And even I've noticed that because of this afternoon kind of break time and the times when I can go shopping, I've naturally started eating later, more or less at the time where people here actually eat, like their dinners. A lot of people here don't have dinner till 7, 8, 9, roughly. And so I've ended up, because of adjusting my schedule to the way life is here, I've ended up more naturally kind of falling into that time frame of that's the time to eat at night. Italian public transportation can really be great. Trains can be great, but when you're trying to go to a smaller town, sometimes it can be a headache. Or there are times when the connections between certain places make 0 sense. From where I live to get to the Adriatic Sea by car, it would take you about 30 minutes. But by public transportation to get to the Adriatic Sea with everything, all the connections, whatever you have to make, from what I've been told, it probably would take about 3 hours. It's a very, very short distance. Anytime I ever talk to an Italian and they know that I'm Italian American, or they talk about Italian food and, oh, you Americans don't know anything about Italian food, whenever the subject comes up about Italian food in America, the one thing that Italians always say is like, oh, you disgusting Americans, you always eat meatballs and spaghetti together. And I'm like, okay, what about it? You got a problem with that? Like, yeah, fine, okay. I realize in this country, most people that just don't do that. I have, though, heard that there is a town that this is actually supposedly done. I can almost understand, like, a meatball doesn't quite go with the spaghetti, only because you could have like a ragu or a bolognese. Well, bolognese doesn't go with spaghetti because the spaghetti isn't the right shape to hold on to the sauce. That's also another thing. It's like, I understand there are certain sauces that go better with certain pastas, but sometimes it's just like, it sticks. If your sauce doesn't stick, you might have bigger problems than just the pasta and just the sauce. I've never had a problem once of sauce not sticking to my pasta. I don't know, maybe it's just the way I cook it. But I've never had this problem once in my life. Never. But also on the subject of food, let's go over to coffee. Cappuccinos. Every tourist video that you will see on YouTube, even videos about living in Italy, whatever it may be, they'll say, oh, don't drink a cappuccino after lunchtime. And I have spoken to Italians, even I was just speaking to a family member who had coffee with an Italian this afternoon, who ordered a cappuccino at like 4 in the afternoon. And they were speaking about it, and this Italian said, this specific Italian person said, what do you mean? I've never heard of this rule that you can't have cappuccino in the afternoon. And I've spoken to others that are like, I do what I want when I want. Like, if you don't like that I'm having a cappuccino at 4 in the afternoon, that's your problem, not my problem. I have ordered a cappuccino in the afternoon before. And there's maybe been once or twice where I've gotten a strange look, but it's like, you think I care? If I want a cappuccino, I want a cappuccino. The machine works, right? So let's make this happen. And of course, with some cacao. That's just my opinion, very necessary. It's not complete unless it has that cacao. And then when it comes to restaurants, everything is a la carte. And there will be a lot of places that you will go to where they'll just kind of creep that a la carte in there. I remember a couple times like where I ordered a piece of meat. They said, oh, would you like veggies or potatoes with that? The way that they phrased it was as though that it came with it. It wasn't like any question, oh, like I'm going to have to pay extra for it. And there was one time I was like, well, I could go for both. And it said, could you give me half veggies, half potatoes? And they said, sure. But when it caught time to pay for the meal, on the receipt, it had full order of veggies, full order of potatoes, a la carte, separate from the cost of my plate. And at the time, I didn't quite realize because it just said added. It didn't say like potatoes, vegetables. It just was the word like added or additional item. And so I was trying to understand what was this additional item that I ordered, because all I knew was that I ordered a piece of meat and some water. That was it. I was fine to pay for the water because I knew I ordered a bottle of water. Fine, acceptable. But that I had an extra, what was it? It was ridiculous prices for the potatoes and the veggies. I think it was €7 each. So it was 14 total for these tiny side dishes. And it wasn't even like that crazy fancy of a restaurant. And I said, I'm sorry, but what is this extra €14 here? And he's like, oh, well, that's the veggies and that's the potatoes. I was like, really now? Really? You asked me if I wanted these things. He's like, yes. It's an extra charge. I was like, can I see the menu? And he was like, yeah. And I looked at the menu and so, okay, fine. My fault for not paying attention. But it was just so sneaky the way that came about. So make sure when you're in Italy, if you're getting a side dish and you have to order it separately, if you have to pay for it or not, just so you're not surprised. There are some places where the sides are included. It just depends. But then also when it comes to paying for your meal, the coperta. This is something that annoys me a little bit. I understand. I'm the type of person, if I'm sitting down at a place, I would be more likely to leave a tip. But there's just something about the idea of a forced tip, like in just that it has to be there. I know this is a point that makes a lot of people angry and like people feel very strongly about this one way or the other. And I've worked as a server. I've been a barista. I've worked in that field, and I very much, even after working in that, I very much still have the opinion that not all servers, not all baristas deserve a tip. It's not just because. It's because that person did a good job and you would like to make sure that that level of service continues again. But there was one time when I was at a place and I got something that was cheap. Whatever it wasn't more than €10. Okay, €10, not necessarily cheap, but it wasn't expensive. I'll put it that way. And there was a €3 coperta. I was planning on leaving the guy like €1.50, €2 maybe, but €3 I thought that was a bit of a stretch for 10, and because €2 already would have been 20% tip. And so I was asking the guy, like, I was just clarifying what the situation was, because also on the menu it said a different price for the coperta than it did on the receipt. It was actually I think on the menu itself it actually said €2. So something about that just didn't make sense to me. But he thought it was an attack on him, and he all of a sudden started shouting and yelling and saying, well, if you're not going to pay the cover charge and you're going to make a big deal out of it, you shouldn't even eat out to begin with. I was like, dude, I'm just asking you a question. And it's like, I was going to give you a tip anyway, but like, what's this extra euro? Am I giving you an extra euro here just to look pretty? Like, what's going on here, man? Like, why is there a difference between this price and that price? And it was lunchtime. It wasn't dinner time. I could understand if there was a higher charge at dinner time, but this was also lunchtime. This guy was flipping out. So don't be surprised if when you go to an Italian restaurant here in Italy, or actually in a lot of places in Europe, if you have a cover charge, a coperta. And also the other thing that I was wondering why there was even a cover charge was because there was no bread, no butter. They didn't even give me water. They didn't even offer water. All I had was just that one €10, I think it was a burger even. And so there was no extras. I was like, okay, like, can we talk about this? Because like, no water, no bread, nothing. Like, Not that I wanted it, I wouldn't even eat it because like there's already bread on the burger, but you will have this thing come up. And so he's like, well, fine, I'll just cancel for you. I was like, I wasn't even asking for that. Here's €2. Let's make it okay. I can say I very much never went back there again. And then there are other little things that also get annoying sometimes about the way certain things are counted. 5th or 6th floor, Fahrenheit or Celsius, whether it's the day first or the month first. Let's unpack that a little bit. In Europe, the way that they count floors is a bit different than how they do in the States. Like in the United States, the ground floor is the first floor, and then the next floor is the second floor. Whereas in Europe and a lot of the world, the ground floor is the 0 floor, or in some places you'll even see T, like if you're in a country with a Latin language, like the terra, the ground floor. And then the next floor after the ground floor will be 1. So it'll go 0, 1, 2, 3, rather than 1, 2, 3. So there are some times when it can get confusing. It's like, wait, they said the third floor, is that, and then like you have that moment, wait, in Europe, do they count the floors? Or in America, do they count the floors? Or even with Fahrenheit and Celsius. I've mostly stopped using Fahrenheit just because everything, like if I'm out, I see everything in Celsius. So I hate having to do that conversion in my head. And I have family members who also live here in Italy and friends who are American, and they're talking about, oh, today it was so nice. It was only 78 degrees. And I'm like, what the hell, 78 degrees? Like, I have to sit in my head, think 78. Okay, fine. I have a rough idea what you're talking about. But there are those little things where you just have to make those conversions. And when you're, especially as an expat, an American expat, because the imperial versus metric system, this is one thing that can get to you sometimes, especially when you're tired and you've just had a long day and you don't want to think about anything. You don't want to have to do mental math in your spare time. Or whenever I read dates, I hate it when it's just digits. If it was just like the abbreviation of the month, then the day, and then the year, perfect. I love it when I see that. But anytime where both the day and the month are less than 12, I'm thinking, wait, who's writing this? How are they writing this? Who are they writing it for? Is this a European date or is this an American date? Is the date that I'm looking at May 9th or September 5th? That can get to you sometimes. But probably the most annoying thing, the number one absolute most annoying thing, is the way that billing in this country works. There are some bills that you get every other month, every 3 months, every 4 months, every 6 months. It just depends. And then sometimes they come really late. There was one time there was a trash bill I hadn't gotten about maybe 6 months. And I received a final notice that trash would be cut off, like the pickup, if it wasn't paid for this past 6 months, but no letter was ever received, nothing. And it was a final notice with 3 days left on it. And it just so happened to be a Friday where things were closing early. And then it was the weekend. And so it was like, wait, you're telling me I need to pay this on Sunday when the office isn't open? There's no place where I can go and make this transfer. Luckily, in the end, we got everything sorted out. But it was just kind of like, come on, really? Like, really, you're going to pull that? Or that in the mail, I don't get the bills for my internet that I have to pay. I get the bills for the bills that I've already paid. Like a month or two later. A little bit of an odd system. I mean, they have a direct debit for my bank account, so they withdraw. So I find that very odd. And it's like, oh yeah, here's your bill that you've already paid. I have one bill that is on time, and that is my phone bill. That comes on the same day every month, so that I can rely on. The other ones, it's like, okay, do I need to make sure I have a little bit extra buffer, or is my normal buffer in there, or can I get a buffer this month? Like, just because sometimes you can't quite plan out these things because you don't know when the bills are going to come. It could even be because of the mail system. It could be just because they issued it at a very late date. But for sure, bills don't seem to usually come, even if they're supposed to come on a specific interval. This often doesn't happen. Anyway. Hope you've enjoyed this video and maybe even found it helpful. And of course, if you'd like to see more content like this about moving to Italy, Italian dual citizenship, and living life abroad, please be sure to subscribe with that notification bell turned on. And if you could also give this video a like and share it with your friends, I would very much appreciate that. And if you would like to help make more content like this possible on a monthly basis, you can go to rafaeldifuria.com/Patreon, or just to help out once, you can go to rafaeldifuria.com/support. Or another way to help out the channel is that there are shirts, baby onesies, mugs, and more available with Italy-centric designs at rafaeldifuria.com/NYAG gear. Thank you again so much to those of you who make this content possible. It is really greatly appreciated. And of course, I am Rafael Di Furia, aka Rafi D is me. Thank you so much for joining me on another beautiful Friday night. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend and a great week ahead of you. I look forward to seeing you all next Friday. Later. Have a great one. Later.